On episode 668 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet Dr. Supatra Tovar and discuss her book, Deprograming Diet Culture, Rethink Your Relationship with Food, Heal Your Mind, and Live a Diet-Free Life. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/668. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. Each week, we dive deep into health and fitness topics that affect those of us over 40. I'm Coach Allen. I'm an NASM certified personal trainer with specializations in corrective exercise, behavior change, performance enhancement, and fitness nutrition. A Precision Nutrition Level 1 coach, a FAI certified functional age-linked specialist, and an OTA Level 2 online trainer. Each week, I'm joined by our co-host, Coach Rachel. She is an NASM certified personal trainer and a RRCA Level 1 run coach. Let us be your coaches as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Nobody starts focusing on their health and fitness in the middle of November. It's so much better to wait 6 weeks. Have you thought that maybe you'd get started now, only to have that little voice inside your head convince you that it's better to wait until January? We know there's never a perfect time to start, but you do know when the best time to start is? It's right now. Waiting has never been the right answer. Enrollment in the 40 Plus Fitness Laser Coaching Program is now open. This program is the most cost-effective way to have one-on-one coaching and get the accountability and support you need to reach your health and fitness goals. And until November 15th, yes, just a few days from now, I'm dropping the price back to the founder's price. Go to 40plusfitness.com/laser and use the coupon code START to get $200 off. Last time I checked, there were a couple slots remaining. If you're serious about making 2025 the year you got consistent and got results, go to 40plusfitness.com/laser and use the coupon code START to get the founder's price. Hey, Res, how are you?
Good, Alan. How are you today?
I'm doing better.
Good.
I'm doing better. We're a little behind schedule on the way we like to do things because I couldn't actually record last week. I actually had a hard time even getting out of bed because I've had a pretty bad flu. It's not COVID. So, you don't have to run away. It's just a flu, but it's pretty bad. And so I've had it for about a week and a half. I'm just kind of getting over the cough of it and trying to get caught up because, taking a day off is hard. Taking 4 days off, unplanned days in a row is like killer.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've got this week I had, it's stacked. So I had 2 last week, 2 this week, and then 2 next week. And so now I have 3 this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I have to finish reading the books for all of those, get those all organized. I only had one of the books read as of Friday. So I had to go ahead and get another book read and then another book read. So it's kind of chaos in my life.
It's a lot.
But yeah. But the positive things are I'm really excited. I kind of relaunched a little bit, I guess I can call it relaunch, but I made a special offer for a discount on my laser coaching program to kind of get it at the founder's price. I did that a couple weeks ago for Halloween. I said scary is the coupon code. If you go to 40plusfitness.com/laser and you get to the coupon code part, you can get $200 off, which puts you back at the founder's price of what I originally started the program at.
Wow.
That's only going to be active now for a couple more days. Today's the 12th. And so for a couple more days, that's going to be available. So if you're looking to try to lose weight the right way this year, this is a great opportunity for you to get involved, get some one-on-one coaching, use the coupon code, go to 40plusfitness.com/laser, use the coupon code SCARY as long as there's still slots. And you'll be able to see that when you get down to the checkout page. If there's any slots left, I don't know how many are, if there's going to be any as of today, but go check it out, get in, This will be the lowest price she'll be able to get it for pretty much forever. I don't think I'm going to be able to drop it back down again. But I've had some folks sign up. It's pretty exciting to be bringing people on this time of year because, of course, it's so much better to wait until January 1st, weeks and weeks away. But there's a mindset, there's a way of thinking of things. And, again, just here's your chance.
Nice.
So what are you up to?
I am exhausted. over the weekend, I participated in a local ultra marathon, and it's a unique marathon. It's a 30-hour event, and it includes a 5-mile-ish loop around the town here. And the unique part about this event is that you can do as many loops as you want. It's a inexpensive race, and the proceeds go to a charity. This year, it's one of our local shelters that gets a charity. Gets the proceeds, which is super awesome. So even one lap, you've done great things. And but the fun thing is you can do as many as you want. So you can go home like I did, take a shower, go have a proper dinner, come back as much as you want. And so over the course of 30 hours, me and friends of ours, I got in 50 miles. I know another lady I chatted with, she got 80. We had several people that got 100 miles done in the course of the 30 hours. So it was just super fun to see all these people doing crazy things. And now I need some more naps because I am tired.
I can't wrap my mind around the whole running through the night thing. That just, sorry, it's 8:30. I'm going to sleep. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Yeah. It's amusing, but that's definitely something I can't do very often myself. So, but it was fun. It was a fun weekend, great charity, got great money. So yeah, super fun.
Excellent. Now, one thing I do have to say before we get into this episode, I live in a third world country. And even so, this happens where you are too. While we were doing the interview towards the end of it, the power went out. And so Dr. Tovar was in the midst of answering a great question about tiny behaviors, however you choose to say it. And then the power went out. Now, she was far enough along in answering that question that I didn't want to make her go back and re-answer the question. So you're going to notice that there's like an abrupt stop. And then, yes, I come back on and got back on. Power went out just long enough to disrupt this podcast and not much else. And then it was back on. But I got back on and I was able to ask her, the 3 strategies or tactics that I like to ask all my guests. So we got there, we got it done, but just realized it might feel a little bit abrupt where she's talking and I'm gone. Right. And so, again, that happened. I can't unhappen it. And I'm not going to unhappen it, even if I could. So it is what it is. But I wanted you to be aware that at some point you're going to feel like the earth fell out from under you while you're listening to this. And it's not nearly that drastic, but podcast wise, it is. But all right. So you ready to talk to Dr. Tovar?
Sure.
Our guest today earned her doctorate in psychology and has 2 master's degrees, including a master's of science in nutrition. She opened her first Pilates practice more than 20 years ago and has been a registered dietitian since 2015. She is one of the only clinical psychologists who is also a registered dietitian and accredited fitness expert. She has helped numerous clients overcome eating disorders, trauma, depression, and anxiety by teaching research-proven techniques that can be implemented within daily routines. Her clients' successes have led her to start Anew, a company dedicated to guiding people through the journey of improving their relationship with the mind, body, and spirit. She has been interviewed for the Times of London, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and other media outlets about nutritional psychology, the psychology of weight loss, and behavioral change. With no further ado, here's Dr. Supatra Tovar. Dr. Tovar, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, the name of the book is called Deprograming Diet Culture, Rethink Your Relationship with Food, Heal Your Mind, and Live a Diet-Free Life. As I got into it, just the term deprogram.
Yes.
That's the right word.
It is.
That's the right word. It's so weird because we're seeing more and more of how programming can change behavior. It literally
Yeah.
just change everything. And and I think we're seeing this as we're, and unfortunately it's just in the current way that people are handling politics and this and that, is that there's a series of things that are happening in the press and the media and everywhere else. And it builds a program in our brain that's not always, sometimes rational, sometimes not.
Right.
And we start making decisions based on that programming.
Yes.
That is more often than not in our best interest.
Definitely in this case, not in our best interest.
And that's what I'm saying. With diet culture, it is literally, it completely bypasses all, I'm not going to say sanity per se, but it puts you in a frame of mind where you're bypassing the most important fact that you should be trying to live being healthy. And none of diet culture really ever addresses that. Now they use it in marketing, green label, this is healthy, and all of that. But beyond all that, that's just to define food. They're like, we got to define food, because if we don't define food, you won't know what to eat and what not to eat. And as a company that makes food, I want you to think mine's healthier than theirs. So I got to put it on the label. And so it's all these things. I'm like, okay. And we think we can change our behavior without changing our mind. Okay.
Well, you can try, but it's very, very hard if you don't change your mind first. And I think it's really important to completely define diet culture, because I think you're right. It's something that sits in the background in our subconscious, also brought to our conscious awareness. But I don't think people realize that it actually is a culture, and it's based off of two very distinct and negative biases. And the first one is lookism, or the unhealthy pursuit of the thin ideal. And you see this everywhere in celebrity culture. You see it in advertising. You see it on every television show or movie. You see this in magazines. This very thin or very emaciated ideal, or super buff muscular ideal for the men. The promotion of this bias inherently makes us feel like we're not good enough and we need to strive toward this ideal. Then you also have weightism, or essentially fat shaming and fat phobia, as the other bias that's driving diet culture. And that basically is just our fear of how we might be treated if we're overweight or obese. And it is an actual true fact that people are generally treated more poorly if they're considered overweight or obese. And so these two biases drive, multi-million-dollar enterprises that are essentially designed to prey on these insecurities and take our money. And when you really look at it, especially when it comes to dieting itself, the actual act of dieting is futile. And I think when people really open their eyes to the fact that it does not lead to lasting weight gain, in fact, more often than not leads to weight gain, then people can really start to be aware and make conscious decisions that actually do work for their health as opposed to work against their health.
Yeah, because there was this study that you pointed to, and when I first read what you said, I was like, that I don't know that that's true. Okay, it's kind of the way my brain works. I cannot read something or hear something anymore that my brain doesn't just stop and do a pattern interrupt itself and say, okay, what did I just read, and is it true? And so I was reading it, and I was like, okay. Initially, I'm nodding, but I don't feel like, okay, this is exactly what I think I'm reading. So I have to now go down the rabbit hole of the study that you talked about. And I got into the study, and it's absolutely true in the end. Okay. It took me a little while to get there because I had to read the study to say, okay, yes, this is true. Okay. So we lose weight because all diets work. because we are eating fewer calories than we need, and we are losing weight for as long as we can sustain this unsustainable way of eating. And then we stop. And unfortunately, for those of us over 40, when we start to bring the weight back on, unfortunately, when we lost the weight, we did not just lose fat.
No.
We
more often than not, you're not losing that much fat, because what happens when we diet, and if you look at this, especially from an evolutionarily designed lens, we're not designed to handle restriction or starvation very well. The body does not want that. Obviously, if you look back and, pre-caveman times and all of that, it was mostly famine and some feast. And so the body had to find a way to hold on to its calories. And fat calories, I have the most calories per gram. The body wants to hold on to that more than muscle and more than water. They'll let the water and the muscle go faster, but it's also keeping these proportions in mind, so that once you're out of the danger zone, which is a diet, and when you really look at diets, it's always proposed that if you consume fewer calories, then if you burn off more calories than you consume, you will lose weight, which is true in a sense. But if you look at a diet itself, usually what you're doing is you're cutting your calories in half, if not more. Most people eat 2,400 to 3,000 calories a day, and most diets are 1,200 calories. So you're cutting your calories in half, if not more, and you're sending a signal to your body that you're in danger, that you are in starvation, especially if it's half the amount of calories. Your body is like, oh, no. And so what it does is it rapidly suppresses your thermogenesis, because it's trying to conserve, it's trying to keep you alive. And it'll get rid of whatever it can get rid of more easily, like water and muscle. And it's deceptive. You get on the scale and you're like, yeah, I'm losing weight. This is great. This diet's working. But it's really not, because the body's keeping the score, and it's telling itself, as soon as starvation is over, we are ramping up how much this person's going to eat. It's called compensatory hyperphagia. Just means to make up for what you lost before, you're going to eat a lot. Yeah. So as soon as the diet's over and the body gets the signal like, oh, okay, we're back online, we're okay, we're not in danger, we're safe, then all you want to do is eat. And most people can experience this as soon as they come off the diet. They're like, yes, and they start to eat, and you'll just regain that weight, slingshot right back to it. So it's a completely futile effort.
Right. And you not only sling past it, to it, you sling past it often.
Usually.
And then the other side is, because we're over 40, I would say 99% of the time, that sling over, all that weight gain was not muscle. You had muscle, and then you lost muscle, and now you are gaining the weight, and it is just fat. Some water. Yes, we're going to bring some water back in because our body needs that.
You will gain some. There's actually called the body energy partitioning system, and it does remember how much you had in proportion, muscle and fat. It is trying to conserve the fat as much as possible. So when you do lose muscle, you will gain it back in the proportion. It may not be as much, but you will gain it back. But it's really trying to hold on to the fat calories.
Yeah. And so you end up with a worse body fat percentage at the same weight that you started. And if you repeat this cycle over and over, which we refer to as the yo-yo or the roller coaster, you're just getting less healthy and less healthy and less healthy.
Yes. And on top of that, while you're in the diet, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody who's happy on a diet. I have never, ever seen somebody who's like, yay, I'm dieting. Most often they're miserable. They have brain fog. They have anxiety. They have depression. And usually that comes from the current method of dieting right now. If you look, there's been a long history of what not to eat. when you're dieting. First it was, fat is bad, cut out all the fat, then cut out all the sugar, and then cut out all the carbs. Right now we're in the cut out all the carbs and eat as much protein as you can possibly stuff down your throat. And what that does to the body, when you actually look at this from a dietitian's perspective, is you are depriving the body of its main source of fuel. The main source of fuel that we have to fuel our muscles, to run our brain, to do so many processes are carbohydrates. And so when people, drastically cut them, especially when they cut them completely and you see them having a mostly protein diet, you see a lot of problems. And if they do this long term, you see them have difficulties, maybe even with kidney stones and difficulties with their liver and possibly getting non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and things like that. And of course, when you consume too much of anything, it gets stored as fat. So we're working against our bodies. And that, I think, is one of the most important lessons from diet culture, is that you're right. It's not necessarily about what's healthy for us. It's about what's touted as the fastest and quickest way to get where you want to go. But it's usually at a great cost.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've found with a lot of folks is when they start the labeling, this is bad and that's good and I can't eat this, they want what they tell, like, don't think of a pink elephant. It's the don't think of a pink elephant. And in your brain now, suddenly you got this image of a pink elephant. Yeah. And so they crave the foods that they tell themselves are bad. And they force themselves not to. And as the result, they kind of turn off all that internal signaling we have for real hunger.
Yeah.
To know that, hey, you are hungry. Go eat something, guy.
Yeah.
You need it. And because they've talked to themselves over and over and over of ignore that.
Yeah.
Then it's really hard for them to tell when they are hungry. And it's equally as hard for them to tell when they aren't hungry and this is something else. Can you talk a little bit about the hunger signaling and how diets kind of somewhat screw that all up?
Oh, totally. There's the main hunger hormone, which is ghrelin. And as soon as you're hungry, I mean, it's like the GUR in its name. You feel the grumbly tumbly and you get a little lightheaded and all you can think about is food. And that is a very important signal. When we ignore that, and we often do with dieting, we're often told, just drink water past your hunger or whatever it is, to just ignore it. You're sending a very, very important signal to the body, which is, I'm in danger. And when we're in danger, our sympathetic nervous system is online. That's when we're like, fight or flight, trouble. That is the actual worst state for our body to be in if we actually want to digest food and lose weight. We're working in the opposite of that. And I think a lot of people, they lose track of their hunger because of dieting, also because of conditioning. We, eat in front of the TV. We eat when we are, emotional and not necessarily hungry. And so we lose track of that base. We're just not tuned into our body. So one of the things that I teach to my clients is that is the most important thing that you can listen to. It is the worst thing for you to ignore. Hunger is not bad. Hunger is basically your body telling you you need nutrients. Not that, if you eat when you're actually hungry, you're just going to gain weight. A lot of people think that. A lot of people think that they'll immediately gain weight if they honor their hunger, which is a lie, like from diet culture from a long time ago. You can see this all the way back to the 40s, 50s, maybe even earlier. It's a really, really toxic message. But when you actually give your body the food it needs when it's hungry, it signals all of these other processes to start to happen. And especially if you're giving yourself food When you're in a relaxed state, it's even better because then you kick on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system state that you need to be in order to digest your food. So when you do give yourself a food, which, we've been conditioned to say that that's taboo, when you actually allow that and you eat slowly enough and you're present with your food, then you can hear the other signal, primarily coming from leptin, but we have some other hormones involved there that are saying, hey, you've had enough food. When you actually listen to that, which oftentimes doesn't happen if you're dieting and restricting yourself and then you go into a binge because you've denied your hunger for so long. When you go into a binge and you go well past your fullness level, that's when you're signaling to your body, uh-oh, we're having a difficulty here with balance. I think we got to store all of this as fat because they're not really listening to the signals. But when you actually pay attention and you get to that point of satiation, then the body's like, oh, cool. Okay, she gets it. This is great. Now what we're going to do while we're chilling out is we are going to get all of these nutrients and we're going to send them to the rest of our body. And that is how you actually stay in balance. So you can see with dieting, you're told the opposite. Yeah. And I really like to educate people. And what's so amazing to my clients, what's been amazing for me on this journey is when you do pay attention to that, then you just naturally go to your healthiest weight. You don't even have to think about it. You don't even have to try. You're not out there over exercising. Your body is in harmony with you. And then it processes what it needs and gets rid of what it doesn't need naturally.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because, from that signaling perspective, and I've seen this many, many times, is we'll start to eat something that is really not what our body needs. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's there. It's convenient. It's easy. We're eating this thing. And then we're confused because we if you looked at the calories, it's like, okay, well, I had more than enough calories. I shouldn't be hungry. But Grellin's sitting there thinking, okay, I thought we were going to get some nutrients here. And what you gave me didn't have the nutrients. So it's still signaling more.
Yes.
Now we're reading that more of the burrito or more of the Twinkie or whatever, more of that. But that's not what it's saying. It's like we need the nutrients. And when you give your body the nutrients, it actually then switches over.
Yes.
And so it's just interesting to me. It's like when I really started paying attention to the food, the quality of the food I was eating, I realized I was just naturally eating less because I would sit down and it was nothing for me to kill a 32-ounce steak. Nothing, just go, eat it. And the potato and the buns and the rolls and everything. And then, but what I found was as I started slowing down and I started having higher quality food. So instead of this, more vegetables. Instead of, I could have a 32-ounce steak in front of me, but the higher quality steak, it was, animals better cared for. It was more omega-3 and then omega-6, so it was a better mix because it was a better cared for animal. I would start eating, and after eating maybe 6 ounces, 4 to 6 ounces was a basic serving or serving and a half, I suddenly find myself not being as hungry. It's just the eating slower, focusing on the nutrients in my food, maybe skipping on the rolls before dinner, maybe skipping on the beer, and then just giving your body those nutrients. It starts that signaling process. Usually, about 20 minutes, I guess.
Yes, it takes about 20 minutes for the brain to register the presence of food in your stomach. I think it's really important, and this is often, I think, a confusing area for many people is, do we label food as good and bad? And I'm a big proponent that we actually keep food in how we label it neutral. Because when we say a food is bad, or I shouldn't eat this, or, I got to watch out for the bread, I can't eat carbs, I can't eat sugar, all of those things, what that does is sets up a psychological craving for what we can't have. I love it when people keep every single food open and available for them. This is especially helpful, though it seems counterintuitive. It's especially helpful for anyone who's engaged in restrictive dieting. Because what that does is it helps to eliminate or at least reduce the propensity towards binging. When we don't have a moralization of a food saying it's good or bad, and we say, I am allowed to have whatever I want, we actually crave those foods less.
Yeah.
That's what's really important. And when we're really listening to the body, you are absolutely right. I always I love potato chips. I love fried things. I do. I love them. But when I'm listening and I'm actually paying attention to what I'm eating, I get to the 10th potato chip and I'm like, yeah, my mouth feels terrible. It's too much salt. I've had too much. I know I've had too much. And it's fine for those 10 potato chips. I'm like, yay, okay, I had it. That's what I wanted. But if I go beyond that and I'm truly paying attention, my body's like, no, lady, what are you doing? Stop. But I know also that when I eat on the more healthful side of food, I think there's a spectrum from less healthful to more healthful. When I eat on the more healthful side, my body is like, yay. Oh, thank you so much. You gave me food that's close to the ground. And we know just from, a biological perspective that our bodies are designed, of course, to eat food that comes from the ground as opposed to things that are made in a lab. So when we're eating that food, our body recognizes it and goes, yay, okay, cool. You're giving me all of the colors that I want from my vegetables. And we don't even have to go into what nutrient is in each color. But if we're eating very colorful food, we're getting all the vitamin and minerals that we need in a day. So you're going to have more energy. You're going to think better. You're going to exercise better, perform better. Right. But when we eat on the less healthful side from things that are made in a lab, our bodies know that. It's like, no, I don't even think was that food? I'm not sure. That's what your body's actually saying.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, again, just how prolific some of this stuff is. Now, a lot of people do know that I'm a personal trainer here. I don't walk around, wearing a Mr. Personal Trainer shirt or anything like that. Here, I just walk around as a normal person. But we were at this dinner last night, and this woman walked up, and we were talking, and she said, "Can you eat any of this food?"
Wow. You're like, yes, because my mouth works.
But it was just that mindset of we're in a restaurant and they're serving this and this and this. And can you eat any of this food? I'm like, well, yeah, ceviche. There's some tortilla chips, but they make them here. So it's not, they're not Tostitos. Still, I would eat them. If that's what was on the plate, that's what I would eat. Because, it's nice to have a little crisp chip when you're eating your ceviche, but it was local fish, fresh ceviche. I had a salad with some steak. It was like a wonderful meal. And I'm like, but again, it was just that mindset. Can you eat this? Because you eat healthy. Therefore, there must be all these things you can't eat. And it must be impossible for you to eat in a restaurant.
Right.
And I know I've been in that place before, but it's just the whole idea of, you've got these things going on in your head where you're thinking, I can't do this and I can't do that. And going to a restaurant becomes now this terrifying event of all this stuff in your face and choices, and you're watching them carry stuff out to the table for other people. And, but we have these patterns, this way that our brain gets wired. And that's why, again, I love you use the concept deprogram. Can we talk a little bit about those thinking patterns and how they play into this? Because if we don't understand how our brain's working, it's really hard to reverse engineer the solution.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's a pretty broad topic, how we got these ideas, but I always like to funnel it back to childhood, because childhood is where it all begins. This is where, if you look at the external influences, man, do food companies go crazy trying to advertise to kids. And they really try to shape what they choose to eat at a very young age. If you look at, the McDonald's cast of cartoon characters, and if you look at all the kind of advertisements and Tony the Tiger and things like that, they're really trying to capture the eating habits of children very early, and they're trying to shape them very early towards, of course, buying their products. Then you look at the internal influences on a child, and that's what even more powerful. Like advertising is super powerful, but I mean, what we get from our parents is the most powerful. And so if you just look at attachment styles alone, which if you don't know what that is, it's just the relationship you develop with your caregiver as a child. If it's anything outside of secure and safe, meaning you grew up with a parent that just provided you all the safety and love that you needed so you could go out in the world and just do what you wanted to do. If you were anything else, which is most people.
Yeah, like, I don't know. There might be someone that has that out. I don't
There's
know.
like, I don't know, one person I know maybe. The rest are, you either have anxious attachment and your parent was very anxious and maybe even kind of, just erratic and full of panic and things like that. You will develop oftentimes an anxious attachment style or avoidant. If you had a helicopter parent or somebody who was completely avoidant, you may have a standoffish type of attachment. Or if you were in an abusive relationship, then you may even have like a disorganized type of attachment, which is a combination of all sorts of things. Those really shape us. How our parents treated us from our first, very, very formative years of life up until when we left the home really shape how we actually deal with food. Oftentimes, avoidant people might even be avoidant with food. Anxious people might be prone to emotional or mindless eating. And disorganized attachment people, they might even have a kind of a dissociation from food because everything was just so fraught with emotion as they were growing up. Or they may even be prone to binge eating if they've had sexual abuse, right? So there's all sorts of stuff that can happen just between the caregivers. But then you add just the societal stuff that parents have picked up along the way, like you need to finish every single thing on your plate. You have to come to dinner. Yeah. Starving kids in India or China or wherever.
Yeah.
You have to finish everything on your plate, even if you're not hungry, so you can earn dessert. That is like one of the most damaging things you can do to a child, to say that, because you tear them away from their natural style of eating and them actually listening to their bodies. All of those messages that you might get at the table, or you might get some super diet mentality ideas at the table. All of my clients, I take them on a deep dive into childhood, and we really examine what they received as messages when they were young. And we can then objectively look at it today and determine, was that healthy? Was that a good message that you got? Why do you think your parents gave you that message? It's not an exercise in vilifying parents. Parents usually mean really, really well. They just don't know that they're imparting these terrible things on their children. Yeah. And once they can get that objective, stance on it and see how that affected their thoughts today, that's when we go into the really wonderful work of reformulating their thinking about themselves, about food. That's when I go into a lot of psychoeducation, because you see a lot of people come into the office saying carbs are the devil.
Oh my. Okay. So go ahead.
What?
Go ahead.
What happened? Oh,
sorry.
Okay. So you'll see that when, you have that kind of messaging, and when people actually reformulate their thoughts for thoughts that are helpful for them, that's when you see incredible change with them.
All right. Yeah. So, there's a lot to unpack there. As we look at our behaviors and we're able to kind of track that back a little bit, mm-hmm. What are some simple ways that we can kind of say, okay, I need to kind of rewire that a little? Because I get it. I remember a teacher, so funny. I used to like to do this, and I don't know why, but it's the kids' meal. They bring you the food out at lunch. And so the food was, I'd have mashed potatoes and I'd have peas. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I really liked the taste of the mashed potatoes, and I didn't really like the taste of the peas. So I would mix the peas in with my potatoes. And then eat it. And I just remember mixing them in one time and this teacher walking by and just yelling at me. And she says, "You're going to eat every bit of that." And I started thinking at the moment, I'm like, am I doing something weird? Am I different? And it was just one of those moments. And so I would force myself now I did this at the school, at least for the rest of that year, to not mix them anymore. Because I just felt weird. Again, there was a point where I became rebel and just said, okay, yes, I'm weird. It's actually cool to be
I'm
weird.
Gonna mix
so I'm
those
gonna
peas
I'm gonna
in.
mix I'm gonna eat whatever I want to eat the way I want to eat it. So eventually I like flipped it only because it was this opportunity to rebel. But a lot of times we don't even know, like we can't even point to an event where we thought, why, is this weird? And then all of a sudden I realized I'm doing something. And it was like I was talking to my mother, and one of my relatives did not like her food to touch other pieces of food. It was, we have these kind of quirks that we develop for different reasons. And I would understand it if someone didn't want their food to touch, like, they don't want their food to touch. I'm like, okay, cool. That teacher didn't want me mixing my potatoes and peas. So it's a thing. Once we kind of realize we have that kind of like latent messaging in there, if you will, how do we go about addressing that?
Well, like I said, I think the first thing is awareness. As soon as we're aware that we have these thoughts, and I think probably the most common diet culture types of thoughts are, I'm fat, I'm not good enough. Big one, I think, for anxious people is I'm not safe. They don't really realize that they're thinking this all the time, but if they're highly anxious all of the time, it's because they're not feeling safe. Carbs are the devil is another one. Sugar, can't eat sugar. There's all sorts of things that we pick up. And when you really bring conscious awareness to them, you can then examine them for veracity. And I think that that's one really powerful thing to do, especially for something like I'm worthless. Most people actually believe that on a subconscious level. They've been given that messaging so many times. I am not good enough. I am not good enough. I am not good enough. And that really translates into I am worthless. When you examine that, of course, that's an untrue thought.
Yeah.
When you really look at yourself compassionately and with love and with empathy, of course, anyone who's born on the planet is inherently worthwhile. And that is a very powerful thing to make that realization. And then how do you then make that your prevailing thought as opposed to I am worthless? If you look at it, you've been thinking I am worthless so much that it's become automatic and subconscious. So the key is to make it conscious and systematic in how you're reformulating that thought. And I think one of the most powerful ways we can do this is through working through mantras. Now, mantra is a short phrase repeated over and over and over to a point where it becomes a meditation and relaxing and a peaceful activity. The reason why this is so powerful is because of the repetition. You think about it. Say you're only doing 2 minutes, which I recommend to people when they're doing this type of work, is to make it a very small, achievable behavior. You repeat, I am loved, I am loved, I am loved, or I am worthwhile, I am worthwhile, I am worthwhile. What you're doing is you're resetting your nervous system. You're getting into that calm parasympathetic nervous system state. You're repeating this over and over again. And what's happening is you're creating new neural pathways in your brain for this new thought. And you are slowly extinguishing the old thought from your mind, becoming consciously aware and choosing not to think it. That's how incredibly powerful our minds are. You do this, say it's for a month. And if you think about that, that's 2 minutes a day. You're maybe repeating it like 120 times a day. And then you make that a month's worth of repetition. It's powerful. It actually works. You actually start to achieve that thought and that nervous system state more and more naturally the more you do it. So I think it's one of the most important things that we can do with our time, because there's one of my favorite quotes of all time is Henry Ford. And he said, whether you think you are or you think you aren't, either way, you're right. So you can think this terrible thought and continue to think it, and your feelings and your behaviors will follow. Or you can create this new thought, which creates these wonderful feelings, which then fuels all of these positive behaviors. And you can completely and totally change your life.
Yeah. You mentioned something there that I think is super, super critical. And I'd like to go back to it because I think a lot of times people will come into something like, okay, this is it. Of course, we're doing this. This is going to be in November, but as this comes out, but the reality of it is people will sit there and say January 1st. Okay, January 1st.
Oh, yeah.
It's 6 weeks away, guys. Don't wait. But they come into a moment, they're ready to go. So they're going to do this diet. They're going to do their 10,000 steps. They're going to drink 120 ounces of water every day. They're going to go to bed by 10 o'clock. They're going to,
for 2 weeks,
kicking
and
their
then
dog.
they stop.
Stop kicking their dog. Stop everything. It's like they're going to change the world.
Yes.
And every behavior that they now feel is, and they've labeled mentally, wrong.
Yes.
Okay. And they want to fix it all. But the real power comes in the teeny behaviors.
Yes.
Or tiny. Do you say teeny or tiny?
You can say teeny tiny behaviors.
Okay.
How about that?
So kind of talk a little bit about that, because it was, as you went in the book and you were talking about this, I said, this is the concept that doesn't exist. Well, it doesn't exist enough. People don't talk about this enough.
Yes.
Is that it's the pebble that starts the landslide.
Totally.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. I read an amazing book by BJ Fogg called Tiny Habits. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what is missing on New Year's Day. Basically, when we look at New Year's resolutions, they're huge. They're completely unspecified. I'm going to lose 30 pounds. I'm going to climb Mount Everest. I'm going to quit smoking. And there's no specificity to it at all. You just say, this is what I'm going to do. And they're grandiose behaviors too. I'm going to cut all carbs. I'm going to hit the gym for an hour every day and walk, 10,000 steps on top of that. All of that, if you look at what you were doing on December 31st, was probably the opposite of that. And so it's just too much for you to take on and to incorporate on a regular basis. The only way to lasting change is to make small, little behaviors that are doable for you every day. So the steps are this. So say you did want to add exercise, which is a wonderful goal. Like that is a wonderful goal. Hopefully you're not doing it as a weight loss method, because that is actually very ineffective. It is a wonderful way to increase your strength, to increase your cardiovascular capacity. It is so good to create endorphins, help clear your mind. There's so many reasons why we should exercise, but weight loss really shouldn't be one of them, because it's not effective unless you want to be in there 6 hours a day, which no one really does. So say you want to add exercise so that you can increase all of these benefits. What is the absolute minimum amount that you can do easily every single day without fail? For most people, it can be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. For me, it was 30. I was like, yes, if I can do 30 minutes of exercise every day, I will be a happy camper. And I'm a Pilates instructor, so I'm all about, strengthening through Pilates. I also do a lot of other cardio activities and things like that. But 30 minutes a day, that's all the time I have for it. When are you going to do that? When you get very specific and you find all of the little behaviors that have turned into habits in your day, you can then discern when is the best time to attach this new behavior to what is called the anchoring behavior. So, say you get up, you drink water, you have some coffee, use the restroom, you go for a walk, whatever it is that is your regular morning routine. And say you want to do it in the morning. For me, it was like right after I get up and I drink water, do a little meditation, and just kind of center myself. That's when I want to do my exercise.
So one more question, Dr. Tovar.
Mhm.
I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are 3 strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
Well, okay. 3 strategies and tactics. I would say the first and most important thing that we can do is to minimize the external influence and maximize the internal influence. The more we can actually tune in and tap into our bodies, we realize our bodies are talking to us all the time. They're telling us, you're tired, you need a nap. It's telling us, you need food, you need to stop eating. Please give me this type of food because I love this type of food. When you actually really pay attention to your body is your best friend and is telling you all the time what it needs. And when you honor that, then your body is in harmony with you. And that's how you can actually intuitively and mindfully move yourself towards your best health. I think we don't tend to really honor all of that, especially our hunger and our fullness. But when we're tired, when we need to go to sleep, when we need to shut the computer off, when we've had too much blue light, all of these things, if we were to just pay attention to ourselves, that's how we can achieve optimal health.
I like that. I love that, actually. It's beautiful. Thank you. So, Dr. Tovar, if someone wanted to learn more about you, learn more about your book, Deprogram Diet Culture, where would you like for me to send them?
I have 2 websites. If they want to know anything about the book, I also have an online course of the same name, which is a deeper dive than the book. It is really good if you really want to solidify everything. It has videos, it has a workbook. You can really work on your hunger and fullness, changing your thoughts, eating mindfully. There's all sorts of exercises. You can go to anew-insight.com. That's anew-insight.com. That's also where you can book me as a speaker, find out more about what I'm doing in the media, all of those things. If you did want to come and work with me as a therapy client, I'm licensed in California, Colorado, Illinois, and soon to be New York. I also have associates here with me in California you can work with. And that practice website is drsupatratovar.com. It's DrSupatratOvar.com. You can see all of my socials on both websites as well, just by clicking. You can send me an email. I'm extremely friendly. I love it when people contact me. I welcome that.
Excellent. So you can go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/668, and I'll be sure to have links there for you. Dr. Tovar, thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure to sit with you today.
Raz, welcome back.
Hey, Alan, that's a fun discussion you had with her. I mean, you guys discussed so many different things, but starting with the word deprogramming, I mean, there's so much of what we do day to day, especially with our eating habits, that we're just programmed to do. And when you were talking about finishing your dinner so that you could have dessert, I'm like, that was a light bulb moment for me too. I'm like, I did it. I made my kids do it. There's just so many things that we're just programmed to think and feel and believe about eating that we really need to be aware of and potentially change.
Yeah. I mean, even just the fact that we think of dessert as like a gift.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, there's 2 sides to that. One is it's like a reward.
Mm-hmm.
So food becomes a reward for things.
Right.
We say, let's celebrate. Okay. Well, celebration is food and alcohol.
Right.
And so it's like we have these definitions around what food is and what it means.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can agree, sometimes just a celebration is just getting out in nature and walking or running around.
Sure.
Someone else
spending time.
Actually, someone else may not have wrapped their mind around the fact that, just getting out and having a good time without food can be a reward. But,
Oh, for
we
sure.
always just kind of go back to the, here's my dessert and that kind of thing. And so I think that whole idea of recognizing when you're acting or your behavior is a certain way and it's against what you've set as kind of the course of your life. You say, okay, this is what I want. And now I'm doing something that's counter to that. And getting down to that nitty gritty of why did I do this thing? Sit there and you say, okay, I'm not going to do this thing. This is how I'm going to live my life. And then here you on Friday night doing the exact same thing you said you weren't going to do.
Yes.
And there's a conflict and we don't actually like those. We don't like being counter to the way that we normally think or want. We want to be consistent with that. So that point where you feel that twinge of inconsistency, that's the trigger. Okay. That's a very clear indication that that's the trigger that caused the thing. And taking a moment to step back from that and being objective, being kind, and realizing, okay, I'm a human being and this is what happened and this is why it happened and how it happened. And, I can fix this, but I can't fix this if I'm mean to myself. That's not going to solve it. I don't deprogram myself by doing the things that got me in that bad space to begin with. We have to heal. We have to be kind and recognize that this has happened and then start the process, which she gets into in the book, of how we can rethink this and heal and then move forward with a new way of thinking, a new way of being.
I love that. That's great. I mean, she talks about being aware. I think that a lot of us are not fully aware of what we're doing on a day to day. Like when I go for a long car ride, I like to take with me a big cup of coffee. It's a habit. Some people pack the snacks for a big car ride. I mean, that's super fun. You're going on a road trip, you pack all the junk food snacks to go with you. But like, why do we do these things? Why do we sabotage ourselves that way? I mean, what can we do that's something different? And we're right about in the busiest season of the year. We're going to be approaching Thanksgiving, my personal favorite eating day of the year. And then, of course, all of the December holidays, New Year, and then into New Year's Eve, we've got lots of food all around us, lots of alcohol and parties every other weekend. It seems like we put everything that we normally do on the back burner in order to celebrate. But like we were just saying, instead of celebrating with all the food and the cocktails and everything, maybe enjoy the time with your family and focus on seeing the people, your loved ones, your special friends, and enjoying that time together more than the drinks or the desserts or the pumpkin pie and all the things. Yeah.
One thing I do want to bring out of this that I don't think we got to dive into well enough, but I think it's really important because she talked about it, was this whole how your body responds to being brought out of homeostasis. So you've gone through this weight loss process and you did it quickly. You wanted it quickly, you did it quickly, and maybe you went ahead and used one of the drugs that's out there right now. So the Ozempic and Wegovy and all that stuff. So you did some of that. And you were able to lose the weight. And so you're like, okay, I've lost the weight. And your thought process might be, I'll lose the weight and then I'll build muscle. Then I'll get stronger. And so many people approach it with this process of, I'll lose the weight, then I'll train. And that's backwards.
Yeah.
It's not completely backwards, but it's just not going to work. Our bodies aren't wired to work that way. Our bodies are going to want to return us to a particular state if we get out of that state. And if we do it quickly, there's not time for our body to adapt to a new set point, a new state. And so you might say, I'll lose all the fat. Now, unfortunately, if you're losing the weight fast, you're losing muscle and probably bone density and definitely water during that period of time, and maybe some fat, but not all fat. We tend to think weight loss is all fat loss, and that's not true.
Right.
And then we turn around and say, now we're going to add muscle. So we're going to bump up our calories and we're going to start training and exercising. And we justify even more calories because we're training really hard. And so our body starts putting on weight. And in our minds, we're trying to tell ourselves this is muscle. But we're over 40. So our capacity to put muscle on like that is lower. And so you end up with these cycles. If you're going to try to, the bodybuilders will call it bulk and lean, bulk and lean, bulk and cut, bulk and cut. And if you're over 40 and you think bulk and cut is a good strategy, you are wrong.
Yeah.
The answer is that's a great way to get a really high body fat percentage.
Right. I mean, that was an interesting discussion about the whole yo-yo dieting. I'm not like those guys that go to the gym and bulk and cut, but I have done yo-yo dieting in the past. I would cut my calories in the attempt to lose that fat, not realizing I was sacrificing muscle at the same time. And as I get older, I could tell that, body composition is different, and I have to work a lot more diligently in the gym. I just can't go and throw some weights around. I need to be really cognizant of what I'm trying to accomplish in the gym, especially at this age, being over 50. That was an interesting part of your discussion. I personally didn't realize we lost quite as much muscle mass when we were dieting as we did.
Yeah, you're just basically souping up sarcopenia. Let's roll. Get rid of this stuff. I don't need it.
It's exactly the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. Again, it's a deprogramming thing. It's something that we were taught or somehow learned over the years. And now it's time to rethink that and re-strategize to gain optimal health.
Yeah. And the other one is this 1,200 calorie thing.
Oh, Alan, I hated that so much.
And I mean, like I literally the other day, it was just yesterday, I guess, really, I saw someone actually post that.
Oh, really?
And then someone was like talking about, losing weight when you're in menopause. And it's like, well, you got to lower your calories to 1,200 and da-da-da. And I literally just had to walk away from my computer.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to, I just slap them in the side of the head, knock some sense into them, like it used to be. And I was like, okay, obviously I can't do that. And they're on the computer, but good. I'm glad they're on the computer because I probably would have tried to slap some sense into them. Your body, needs more than 1,200 calories to survive.
Yes.
To survive. Most of us, actually, if we're very active or we're generally active, are needing closer to 2,400 calories in a day.
I feel like that's far more reasonable for people that are
you're
busy.
Literally trying to cut that in half.
It's horrifying.
This is just cut the muscles off my body. I don't need them level of starvation that I can't even describe it. If you are in menopause and you're trying to keep yourself at 1,200 calories, please stop. Deprogram yourself. That's not the number. I don't care what the calculator says. There's zero reason for you to be in starvation at that level.
Yeah.
And you got to stop.
Well, it has such metabolic consequences that just put us in the hole even more. So again, this is deprogramming all the things we thought we knew about health and fitness in our quest to lose weight or gain muscle or whatever it is that we're trying to do. So much out there.
I'm still jonesing to try to go back to that thread. And
no, I don't see much of that myself, but I hope that 1,200 calorie thing goes and dies somewhere a peaceful death.
Yeah, not even a peaceful death. Just stab it in the heart.
No. Yeah,
it's like a vampire, We're just stab it in the heart. We got to get rid of this thing. Your body needs more than that. It just does. I don't care how small you are or how little you're moving. 1,200 calories is not enough to just even survive. Your body's going to cut off function. Your spleen is going to get smaller and your immune system's going to suffer and your sleep's going to suffer and your energy is going to suffer. Your life is going to suffer and you're not suffering for a good reason.
Well, like the doctor said, it's not about what you take away, it's what you're adding back in. And as long as you could focus on the nutrient dense foods, like she was talking about, all of the color spectrum of fruits and vegetables. I mean, that's better to add that in than drastically cut calories randomly.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm a little stewed up, but I will see you next week.
Great. Take care, Alan.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'd also love to connect with you on my new Instagram account at Coach Alan M. That's CoachAllanM. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we're going to bust 9 weight loss myths. Yeah, I'm probably going to upset a few people with these. Until then, have a happy and healthy week.